Germany in the house. Welcome, Syed. Pennsylvania. Beautiful. Do we have any folks from besides the US and Europe? Oh, we got India in the house. We got people in India. We got Swapna. Hey, Swapna, we got people in Chennai. All right, so we got 3 continents covered over here. Extra bonus points if you're joining us from anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. Okay, folks who just joined us, let us know where you're joining from. I see some familiar faces in the room. Hello, folks. Lovely to have you here. Tatiana, Syed, thank you for joining us. Susan, good to see you. Swapna. And what do we have here? Awesome. Let's get the music back for one last minute before we kick off. So quick introduction as we just get people rolling in. I'm Laks Narayan. I'm a co-founder at Streamer Live. And those of you who joined us before know that we love to kick things off with this track, which is The Spirit of Rangila, if you're wondering, by A.R. Rahman, one of India's best music directors. And we also love to kick it off by asking people where they're joining from. And it's lovely to see people from, we got someone in South America. Hey, Susan. Yes, in Uruguay. Awesome. So you got Southern Hemisphere ticked off as well. Thank you. We wanted someone from the Southern Hemisphere. Right. We love to do these sessions. If this is your first session, we do something like this every fortnight, where we have someone teaching us a skill that we can take back to our life or workplace. And we've been told that people have greatly benefited from these sessions. So if this is your first time, we hope to see you in future sessions as well. It's going to be very interactive. It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue. It's a conversation. And to kick things off with that dialogue, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague and friend, Peter Claridge, who will introduce our guest for today, Suhas. And over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Lux. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I lead the marketing at Streamer Live, and I'm absolutely delighted today to be able to introduce Suhas Motwani as our speaker. For those of you that are aware, Suhas, he is the co-founder of the Product Folks, and I'll ask him to tell you a little bit about how successful Product Folks has been. I'm personally really excited to have you on this workshop with us, Suhas, because I'm desperate to learn how to build a community. We've got so many users for Streamer Live. You can see in this workshop right now, we've got so many people who have joined us. I'm really keen to learn from you. How do we build a community for Streamer Live? So it's a little bit selfish. I hope that the questions that I've got for you are also relevant to everybody else who's joining and is looking to build their own community as well. A couple of things just before we get into those questions. Suhas, you've agreed to let us record this, so we're going to be sending a recording to everybody afterwards. So if you're not able to take notes at the moment, we're going to have a recording up on YouTube, and you'll be able to go back and play it back at a slower speed. Also, for those of you that joined early, you've already just experienced Streamer Live when you put your location in the chat. If you haven't put your location in the chat, do it. Just literally type in where you're joining us from in the chat, and Streamer Live will pick up your location and plot it on the map. We're going to be asking lots and lots of different questions from you throughout this event, and all you have to do to participate is literally type it in the chat. So I hope you find it as exciting as I've planned it to be. So Lux, if you could just go to the next slide, please. I was really interested when I asked everyone, what are you hoping to understand? What are you hoping to learn when you join this event? We got a lot of different answers from everybody. I made a nice little word cloud from it just there. So before we get started, can you just introduce the Product Folks? What is it? Who is it for? How have you grown it, very briefly?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for organizing this and inviting me. Really appreciate it. And I think just want to give a heads up to everyone joining in. We discussed backstage that even though it's recorded, we will keep this as candid as possible, and want to keep this more tactical than anything else, right? So the idea over the next couple of minutes is to understand where y'all are coming in from, what y'all are doing. Definitely share, tactically what helped us grow Product Folks to where it is today. Yeah, the whole idea is you can take back, like there are lots and lots of other videos available online. There are lots of playbooks today that weren't available, 5 years ago. But how today's session is going to be different over the next 60 minutes. Please feel free to, put down specific questions that you all have around community building. And of course, there's no one playbook that fits all, but definitely want to brainstorm with you and try helping you where you are. Little bit background, I think we've been building communities for over 6-7 years now. And one community that we're really focused on is the product folks. It is currently India's premier and one of Asia's largest product management community. Started with a niche, but we're over 200,000 members now. So it's a pretty large community today. And with over 30 volunteers building this day in, day out, right? So lots and lots of initiatives around education, mentorship, offline, online engagement activities. Happy to, share how we've been able to build rituals, how we've been able to, figure out what frequencies work for our community, how figuring out what the community really wants and trying to figure out programs, initiatives, and enabling people to, come contribute. So I think lots of challenges that we faced along the way. The idea is just to brainstorm with you. If some of you all are in the same boat, go deeper and try sharing with you what's helped us. And the idea is, we love helping other community builders. And in today's day and age, I think every single, whether you're building a creator-led business, are you building your own content, whether you're building your own startup, I think communities are at the heart of it. So just here, happy to share some of the learnings as we go through.
Fantastic. So just something you touched upon there. So any question that you ask, if you've got any question, just put it in the chat, and we have Streamer Live automatically scanning the chat stream right now. It'll pick up any of those questions, it will collate it, and we can come to those later on. So if you're wondering whether it's a right time to ask a question, it's always the right time to ask a question. Just go ahead. So the kind of idea I had was, Suhas, you've built this amazing community. What would happen if you woke up tomorrow and it had all gone away and you had to start again? So my first question, I saw Syed has already put something in the chat about what is a community, but what does an online community mean to you? Is it a blog? Is it a newsletter? Is it an audience? What is an online community?
So three thoughts that come at the top of my mind when you ask me that. To your question, if the product folks disappears tomorrow and I need to start from scratch, I think the first thought would be, hey, this is a nightmare, because there's been tons and tons of hours of effort that has gone behind the scenes. And I think initially, I'll be very honest with you, it takes a lot of effort to bootstrap a community, right? Just like any other marketplace business, you need the initial traction to get to where we are today. And that bit isn't as easy. But the next bit that you mentioned, I think we're a lot more confident today. I think in today's day and age, there is lots of material around, how you can go about building these step by step. Lots of successful communities, both online, offline, hybrid communities that you can follow and at least bootstrap. So I think it's a lot easier in 2024 as compared to 2018, 2019 when we started. The next part of your question on, hey, what does an online community really mean? Our journey started as an offline only community. I think today there's a entire wave of digital media that has enabled people to create a following. And that's why the lines between building an audience and building a community are slightly blurred, right? So I think for me, I think if you ask me, what does an online community or just community in general, what it means, is a group of folks coming together with a common purpose. It could be whether, it could be an initiative that you are all passionate about. It could be a brand community. It could be anything where there are like-minded people looking forward to interacting and helping each other grow. That's how I look at communities. Lots of nuances based on the kind of communities you're trying to build. But I think the shared purpose is something that is really, really important. And a very simple way to differentiate between, you asked me, okay, hey, is a blog a community, right? I think.
Yeah. Am I looking at it from the wrong perspective here?
Yeah, I think this is definitely blurred in the recent time. Community became a buzzword, especially post-pandemic, where lots more people started building communities, and lots of audience-led or lots of creator-led businesses or single person creating content started calling their audience a community, right? That's where I think the confusion started. The easy way to differentiate between this is if you have a one-to-many interaction, that is an audience. If you have a many-to-many interaction where people can come interact with each other and also, are able to either just interact with the members or help each other, I feel that is the differentiation. So as long as you're able to facilitate a many-to-many conversation, you have some form of a community going. Online, offline, hybrid, doesn't matter.
Fantastic. And so for everyone else who's listening in, put your comments in the chat as well, and you'll see them highlighted up on the screen as you type them in just there. So I mean, if you've got any ideas on what an online community means to you, we'd love to hear that. We'll just keep this up for a couple more seconds, and then so just while people are putting in the chat, like, what does an online community, what are the benefits to an owner? So like as the product owner, what are the benefits to building that community?
To be very honest, I think I've said this multiple times within our community that the role of a product manager and a community manager are very different, but at the same time, they're very, very similar. I think the principles remain the same, right? In product management, you would have heard, big people like, say, Paul Graham say that, hey, initially do things that don't scale. Lots of the principles around product management, the frameworks there are transferable to community management. The only one large difference I see is community management takes a lot longer for you to start seeing results. So the feedback cycle is slightly longer than what you would see in today's VC-driven products that you launch, right? So I think just the feedback cycle is slightly longer. I think you need to be a lot more patient. Day in, day out, you're dealing with people all around you. You need to be patient, building those relationships one by one. If you can get through that layer, and if that is the quality that you can bring to the table, I think that's one of the larger differences. Second, how does it help, right? Say, for example, if you are a product manager, and why I feel like just contributing, you don't need to start a product community, or you don't need to actively build communities yourself, but just being part of a community, it adds lots of value. First of all, right, you're learning from different organizations, you're learning from people from different walks of life, apart from what you're already doing in your day-to-day job, right? So I think just that pure learning is something that I feel is super important. Second, most of us, as we grow through our careers, look for interesting opportunities, right? So if you're hanging out with the right set of folks, many product opportunities, or I feel like the best product opportunities, don't really come out on the job boards, right? It is by you building those relationships. So figure out the kind of people you want to work with, what are the products that excite you, build relationships with those kind of folks, non-transactional, right? You're not looking for a job tomorrow, but those non-transactional relationships, I think, go a long, long way. If I were to just highlight two main benefits of contributing to communities, I feel these would be my two largest. These are things that you can definitely see value in. Apart from, hey, just giving back to the community, I think these are two things that you can definitely take back.
Fantastic. Lux, if you just go to the next slide, next slide. Yeah, so I'm also curious to ask everyone here as well, like, so what topic or niche are you looking to build a community around? What is it that's your are you looking to build an online community for your product? Are you looking to build a community around one of your interests? Are you looking to build a community of like-minded people? What kind of community are you looking to build at the moment?
Yeah, I'm super curious as well. If folks can drop it on the chat section, I'd love to. A strong talent acquisition community. I think, this is definitely a domain, Swapna, that I've seen a bunch of communities come through, I think. And there's a very interesting dynamic that's working out for talent acquisition communities today. So definitely a space. Education, yes. Many learning communities, pick a space and you'll find, cohort-based courses plus communities going through. So these are two sectors for sure. Said no actual plans, but something about audience engagement for like-minded. Perfect. I think we'll jam definitely around that. Educators having sound good on that message.
Okay. Just so I know some of the answers are coming in. My next question is it a good time to build a community? Like, it seems like every other website or product or social network has groups and communities. So is it a good time to try and build your own community?
To be very honest with you, I feel we are reaching a phase or a stage where there exists at least one community in most of the topics that you can think around. The challenge lies in finding the best one out there. The two ways that you can tackle when you're thinking about building a community in a specific sector. First, try researching the best communities that are available, right? A simple Google search or append Reddit down there. So you'll figure out, okay, hey, what are the available communities in my space? The reason I'm asking you to do that is building a community from scratch is way too much effort, right? So before you get to building, and I'm not saying don't build your own community, but before you do that, just research what are the best ones out there. If you can contribute to some of these, I think nothing like it, right? It is lower effort. At the same time, you already have an easier path to meet interesting people in that domain, right? So that is one I'd say. As you start contributing, say you find something, say you don't find anything, yes, go ahead and start a community in your space. I think that just defines that you have enough of an opportunity there. But in case you find something interesting, I think spend enough time to understand, okay, hey, what are the members asking for? What are stuff that you can contribute and help? Post which, if you still feel that, okay, hey, this isn't what you're looking for, then find your tribe online. But if not, I think contributing to a community, one, makes your life easier. Second, probably will solve what you're looking for from building a community. And third, in case you don't find anything there, you'll know what are the kind of things that are missing in this ecosystem, and that'll help you shape your initial set of engagement activities, etc., that you can do for your community. So if I were to build in a new community from scratch in a particular space, this is the way I would look to first figure out what the market looks like, and then go ahead and then figure out, okay, hey, if nothing else exists, this is how I would work out.
I think you've actually just answered my next question around research. Lux, if you just go to the next slide.
Yeah. I think I'll also just keep an eye out on the chat section, folks. At any point, if you all have some questions around any of the topics that Peter and I are discussing, please do feel free to, just put it down on the chat and we'll take it up.
And intermittently, I can pull up the questions from quick questions as well. Peter, Suhas, if you need to we've got quite a few questions, by the way.
I've got some time in a few questions for my own questions, and then we can ask some audience questions as well.
Everybody's competing with Peter. Cool.
Yeah, basically.
Over here, Peter,
and the next slide, yeah. Yeah, so my question around research. So are there any particular other website, like is Reddit a good place to start researching community? Should you be joining groups on Facebook and other places? Like where would you go to get that research? Like, should you be looking at Google search volumes?
Yeah, great time to chat about this because Reddit just filed for its IPO, and seems like an interesting way where they have actually enabled some of the moderators or the early active members to buy into. So that's an really interesting development for communities. If a model like this works out, it becomes very interesting, because why did Web3 communities really thrive is because they were able to figure out an economic layer on top of your communities, right? Some went bust because they overdid it, but if you can really incentivize your early community members, there's nothing like it, right? The number one problem every community manager or every community that I talk to faces is the number one question I get is, okay, hey, how do we improve engagement in our community, right? So this is definitely a very interesting development in the community management space. If you ask me, okay, hey, where do I go research? I think first three places that I would look at is definitely Reddit and Facebook communities. These are till date the most active places that you can go figure out communities. Second, I think what has helped me, and specifically from a product domain, I think lots of blogs that compile this, right? So I try to search around, hey, what are the top 10 product management communities globally, right? And you'll find a ton of articles around these. See which are the most common ones across these. Join a couple of them. The challenge here is some of these articles might be written a year ago, and if you join, a couple of these communities, they might not be as active as they were back in the day, right? So I think that would be my step two. The third, what I like doing is just figuring out what is the interest in this space, right? First, your personal interest, and that's probably why you're searching for this space. Second, try figuring out, just like how there is SEO and ASO, there is search volume and certain intent, right? Based on search volume, it just tells you how niche your community will be today, right? So if you're trying to build a business out of it. Sometimes you might go too niche in a space where you might not be able to build larger communities, which is still okay. But yeah, if you're trying to build a business out of communities, I think you need to pick a space that is one, growing, second, large enough, where there's enough demand. So that'll give you opportunities to monetize in different ways, right? So if you're looking from a business perspective and making, money of it much later, I think you need to pick the right total, like your total addressable market needs to be large enough, right? If you were to talk in startup term, I think that would be my third aspect, that while you're doing your research, along with figuring out which platforms, it is also important for you to figure out, here's the domain that I'm building a community in big enough. If you're doing it for fun and if you're just, building it as a side hobby to meet interesting people, then the size really, really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A group of 100 on, engaged platform is far, far better than having, 50,000 people on a Discord that doesn't matter at all, right? So that is
Yeah.
something that you need to take care of.
So again, I'm being selfish here, and I want to ask specifically about Streamer Live. So do you think we should be looking at building just a community of our users, or would it be better to build a community of people that present virtual events? Like, I'm struggling with that one. Like, do I try and keep it closed and niche, or do I try and make it bigger? Like, what would you do?
I think having seen Said's background and Tatiana's background, I think they are definitely folks focusing on, doing a lot of content. And I think you're getting your answers in the chat section even before I can answer it. It's going to be a mix of both. That's the way I would approach it. I think initially curated for folks who are, definitely a lot more active. That initial set of users, the initial set of users will give you the feedback on what direction your community can go through. Plus, they are probably going to be your power users tomorrow, right? So no community can be built alone. You will need a set of folks to, help you build the community together. So I think that initial user group, I would curate it for, two main reasons, right? First, to figure out what is the direction, what is it that my community members really want, where is it that they feel it's lacking. Yeah, so I think Harshit probably answered, and Tatiana as well. The answer is just to figure out, okay, hey, what is it that the community wants? And it's easier to listen when it's a curated community. Post which I think you can definitely blow it up. I think today in the US, if you ask younger folks what is it that they want to do as part of their careers, I think data says 1 in every 3 wants to become a content creator, right? A platform like
YouTubers.
is perfect for it. So the market's only going to grow from here, but initially keep it curated so you can know what direction you want to take it.
Okay. My next question is around challenges. So Lux, if you just go to the next slide, we've got a question I want to put out to everybody just here, which is, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge to building or starting a community, or what do you perceive to be the biggest challenge? I'm curious to see what everyone thinks. Like, for me, I think the biggest challenge is how do you go from 0 to 100? That to me would be my, like, you can get the tools together, but how do you actually get things rolling where people want to come back again and again? That to me is like my biggest challenge there, starting off.
Yeah, similar. I think the 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. We'll jam on some ideas for that. I think if that is one of the patterns that I'm seeing the questions come through.
Yeah.
Patrick rightly said, I think one of the biggest challenges to believe in your cause, because in a longer term, there are going to be times where you feel like, okay, hey, am I spending time on the right problem statement, right? So that could be one. Swapna said the ratio of contributors versus audience, definitely a huge challenge, I think. As a bucket from the answers that I see right now, one is definitely, okay, hey, how do you go from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100? So that is one bucket we'll definitely jam on. Engagement, like the ratio of contributors versus audience, I think that is something we can definitely chat about. And early champions. Yeah, I think this is also an interesting one that, if we get time, I think, how do you identify these early champions so that, then you can build out. And just to give you a little bit more context there, 100% of the people that I know currently contributing to the product folks are people who discovered the community first, found value, then wanted to come and give back, right? I think so that cycle has really worked for us. Even in the 0 to 1 phase, I didn't start by calling some of my friends saying that, hey, okay, why don't we build this together, right? I instead found people who were a little more high agency, who had a little bit more hunger, and weren't just coming because I asked them to, right? So I think that is something that really helped me in the early days. So I think I would love to jam on, how do you identify some of those early champions, whether you're building an offline one, an online one, and maybe these are 3 platforms I would love to, share some tactical things that can help you today. I know lots more questions coming through. So Peter, you can probably
Yeah,
drive it.
okay. Right, let's move on to the next slide there. We've got another question for the audience just there. All of these images that you see here, all generated with Canva AI, generative AI. I was just playing around with that. Canva is a brilliant tool for non-designers just like me. It lets me do all kinds of crazy things that I just wouldn't be able to do otherwise. If we just move on to the next slide there. I do want to talk about tools. I know we've had people say it's not about the tool, it's about the people. But what are the tools like that you should be using? Like, is it going to be time? Is it going to be resources? Is it going to be money that you have to spend? Like, what are the tools that you need to get things started?
I have an entire slide on this, Peter, so happy to share it with folks here. I can pull it out of my repository on, what are the kind of tools that most community managers might want to use, or,
Yeah.
post this. I'm happy to send you a screenshot if, if you could share it with the participant.
I think we can have you share the screen, right? If you have it already.
I probably will have to just go remote. I'll search it in my tab by the end of the session and I'll share it.
Yeah. Okay. The other
is share if you need to, yeah.
Yeah, let me just quickly get that up. If do you want me to share it now? Just give me a second, then I'll probably pull it up. Just a second.
I think a quick questions list is huge now, Lux.
Yeah,
we can. I think we can open quick questions after this.
Yeah, quickly share my slides.
Only 15, just while Suhas pulls up the document.
Yeah. Let me know when you all can see my screen. Is this visible? Is this?
Yeah.
Right. So this is one of my older decks, but couple of slides that I think are interesting. One is definitely, if anyone here is building, excuse me, if anyone's building a brand community or a community around an existing audience, this is a screenshot I found in one of the blogs that were written by the head of growth at Notion. How you can read this, you can probably take a screenshot as well. It is from the No Good blog, so happy to pull out the exact link. But the idea is most brands or businesses can probably use a framework as is on the left side of your screen. And in the blog, I think they've really neatly shown how Notion does it today, right? So I think this is one particular, happy to go deeper and, we can definitely jam on this if it's useful for the audience. But since it came up, I thought I'll share it with you. We were talking about tools, right? This is what my community stack looks like. Definitely Stream Alive is something I've been using actively these days. And before Stream Alive, what I was trying to do is I had multiple single threaded tools, right? Which were available, some for free online. But I don't think there was a platform that gave me all of that in one place, right? So I think that was my biggest win for using something like a Stream Alive. Second, oftentimes, today I might share some links in the chat section. I might, ask you all that, hey, okay, if this is interesting, take a screenshot of this. But many times post the session, it's not easy for me to go back and share it back with the audience. I think Stream Alive has really helped putting all of that together in one place, right? So I think these are my biggest use cases of using something like this. The community tool landscape is blowing up, to be very honest with you. I think I had a screenshot from 2021. Y'all can see my screen. I think it's a little.
Yep.
Is it visible? Yeah. So I think this is from way back in 2020. I didn't find one that was post this, but you can just imagine how it would have blown up even post 2020, right? It's there are way too many tools. So I also have a slide with I'll update this and I'll share this with Peter. And if any of y'all are interested, you all can check out some of these tools for different parts of running a community. I think on the tools bit, I think these were two that I thought might be interesting. Happy to share. I think I have a couple of other slides, but if there's something that a question comes up, I'll take it up and share some of these resources.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I do have a slide around the metrics bit also. So Ashwin just asked on the chat section. I'll share something around that.
That's one of my later questions as well. I'm glad, save wavelength. Yeah, let's have a look at some of these questions from the audience. I like this one, how to protect the interest of members in the community. I'm not sure if that means in terms of privacy, in terms of content that they share. Swapna, maybe if you could just elaborate in the chat what exactly you mean by that, that would be good. How can communities compete against networks like LinkedIn? So yeah, I'm a member of lots of different SEO and marketing groups on Facebook. It hasn't even occurred to me to join other standalone websites. So how can a standalone community compete against social networks?
So is that the question we want to start with? Maybe we can. I'm happy. Like I think there are tons of questions. So maybe I was just thinking, okay, hey, what are the buckets that might be really useful? If we can figure out a pattern and start with top 3, then we can go a little deeper into some of these questions. Peter, maybe what are the most, or maybe folks in the audience can help us as well. Peter, what are the ones that you find might be most useful? And let's try going deeper so we can share some tactical things for people to take up.
Actually, Swapna has got lots of good questions. I also have the second one just there, how to keep people motivated.
Perfect. Okay. So I think this boils down to engagement in the community and how do you pick up, some of the power users to come build the community along with you, right? From a personal experience, I think product folks started with just one event way back in the day in 2019, where we did our first offline event. And ever since, we've done more than 450 plus events. So our community really thrives where we go deeper on the networking aspect while doing offline stuff. And on the online, we try sharing lots more information. That's how we've divided. And in today's day and age, we're a hybrid community where every month there are 30 communities across 25 different cities every single month, right? So this is on the offline side. And on the online side, every week we do an AMA. Every month we do a teardown, which is one of the ways we engage our community. And every quarter we do a learning based cohort, right? So this is the way our community has been able to figure out rituals and frequency. I think the first thing is figuring out what is something that is what is the peak USP that your community wants from you, right? Initially, you'll not be able to do all of these, right? So start with one small thing. Figure out the way how you'd be able to bootstrap your own community, right? So the first bit is to figure that is the first question you need to answer. And here, I think, don't think about, hey, how can I grow this to a community of 100,000 members or 10,000 members? Think in terms of the next 0, right? So when you're at 0, try to figure out, okay, hey, how do I get from 1 to 10 members, just 10 members, right? So if you're in an online community or an offline community, it doesn't matter where you want to start from, see where your comfort level arises from. So if you are a person who likes to get people together, it is just about, okay, hey, how do I get 10 people in the same domain to come jam with, right? That's an absolute beginning step. In an online world, I think try figuring out if you can build a content layer on top. Try building an audience so that when you want to start a community layer, you have a way to funnel some of these in, right? So if you're building an online community, try figuring out the content game before community so that you have an audience that you can funnel into your community. Once you have that going, I think the question comes through on engagement side, right? Whether this is your power users or an entire community. Engagement layer now will differ on every stage of it, right? So from a 0 to 1, from a 1 to 10, from a 10 to 100, at these levels, the engagement will definitely change. my biggest learning there has been, don't try doing too many things. Maybe we could take a example, right? I think Swapna, since you asked this question, and I remember you mentioned that, okay, hey, you're trying to build a talent acquisition community, right? So if this community is around bringing TAs or, talent acquisition professionals together, one of the biggest wins I think might be interesting for this community is if you can build a layer where, think of it as a bounty board, right? As a talent acquisition professional, in their daily job, they're probably looking or sourcing through, tens of profiles on a daily basis, right? Some of these might be really relevant to their job today, and they're able to funnel them into their hiring process. They might also be coming through many profiles that do not get hired at their current company, but can they really facilitate it back into maybe a bounty board, right? So if you can figure out a way where you create a community job board where your talent acquisition profiles, apart from their daily jobs, can say that, okay, hey, these are some open roles. They go about figuring in this whatever leftover profile they had, which is not affecting their day-to-day job. They could then figure out, okay, hey, we get these profiles into our system, and if that profile closes, these guys get a certain part of the kickback, right? So it's a commission-based model, but I think that really will bring in earning into your community. And I know a couple of communities who've been doing this very successfully. And this builds an economic layer around a community, right? If you can build this out, the word will definitely spread. It's hard to bootstrap it, but I think initially, if you can kick off something on these lines, I think that's one of the USPs that I've seen work in other talent acquisition communities. Every community needs to figure out what is that USP, right? For example, at Product Folks, for a certain set of users who want to break into product management, we've created this entire library on education. Yeah, I think Swapna, okay, you're building recruitment route. Yeah, I've definitely heard about that community. This is one of the ideas that I've seen work pretty globally. So yeah, keep me posted how that goes at your community. At Product Folks, I think lots of people discover our community to come learn about product management, to get mentorship, and then get into an opportunity, right? We found these are three main reasons new members come into the community. And then again, there are lots of product managers who are already in their roles who want to again grow. So education becomes an interesting route for them and figure out opportunities. So education and opportunities are two main reasons why people stick around in our community. So it'll take you time to figure out what that USP is. And once you figure that out, initially you need to keep jamming with your first few users, right? Once you figure that bit out, I think then building processes, like I shared with you, I think we've now been able to figure out frequencies and tactical ways of building rituals in our community, which is why I think lots more people come back. So I know this was a longer answer, but I wanted to walk you through, okay, hey, what are the things that you can figure out, the USP of the community, how you can do it, and then build frequencies and rituals around it.
Something you mentioned earlier that I wanted to come back to, like, how did Product Folks start? Did it start with content? Did it start with courses? How did it begin before it grew into a kind of self-fulfilling community where you have that many-to-many interactions? I'm assuming it just didn't happen obviously overnight. There had to be a start point. Was it a blog or?
Yeah, today, if you ask me if someone were to start something today, I would definitely recommend building a content layer. I think that really helps you funnel in the right set of audience, right? The power of online communities today is huge. But when we started back in the day, we were an offline only community, right? So we started with one.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't have a personal following, nor did we have the Product Folks as a brand that was this big. Today it's a lot easier, but back in the day it was just one small event in Bangalore in India. Got some interesting folks in the same room. That helped build deeper networks, deeper connections. And also, like I shared with you, we did the exact same thing, right? With the people that turned up at the event, we tried figuring out what is it that they want. Post which we added them to a small WhatsApp group. So folks who turned up for the event were added to a WhatsApp group where they can continue their conversations. And then we started doing these events monthly, right? So then we tried building a ritual around this, but purely offline. So back in the day, that really worked for us. But if you were to ask me if today I would definitely augment this with an online layer. And it's a lot easier, I think, today with the power of the internet, with, social in general. It's a lot easier to start community. The challenge there is in online only communities, people haven't had that one-to-one interaction. So the conversation aren't as deep, right? So it's a lot easier to start and join communities, but it's also a lot easier to just at the click of a button log out of a community, right? So I think the challenge lies at a very, very nice balance. Definitely build a content layer, definitely build an audience so that you can funnel that down into an engaging community.
Yeah, it didn't even strike me that maybe do this on a more traditional route of starting offline in your local area and find your little tribe of 20 odd people there. Not saying those 20 people are odd, but
No,
like, so
absolutely.
if I was
20 is
wanting
a
to do
great,
something around marketing, I could
yeah,
come to like my local town and say, I'm going to want to meet up with everyone who does digital marketing for SaaS companies. And you start from there, and
yeah,
you start with like meetup or something like that.com,
yeah.
and then start transitioning it online, like once you've got that core set of people.
Yes, in all honesty, you don't need you don't need 50 people. Like the way I suggest is think of it as a dinner table, right? I don't think you'd want more than 10, 15 people at a dinner table because then it becomes too long, right? You can't talk from one end to the other. So the optimum size would be a dinner table. The right set of folks, right? You mentioned, imagine all the B2B marketing folks in your area. Everyone loves food, right? So figure out a nice watering hole. 10 people is a good number to start with, and then figure out, okay, hey, if everyone is from similar domains, the challenges that you all might be facing might also be similar, right? So your first session could just be a rant session where everyone comes, brainstorms on different ideas.
Those people would also be the highly motivated ones as well,
Correct.
because
Correct,
they're
exactly.
actually like getting out of the house, which is a big deal nowadays. Lux, if you could just go on to the next slide with the poll. I've got a question about monetization and how you make a community sustainable, because how many people do you have working for Product Folks now?
We have over 30 volunteers, 30 active volunteers, but I think
Okay.
over time, I think more than 80 core members who've contributed to this as part of our volunteer team.
Okay. So I'm just curious whether or not a community has to be paid, or if people would be willing to pay. So you just have to type in the chat. I personally don't pay for any community, but maybe other people have different ideas. Like, so maybe some people find value, like, so like if you're part of a professional organization offline or something, then people might be willing to pay. But I'm just curious.
Yeah, lots of people say they probably might not.
Yeah.
Completely fine. I think I'll share with you advantages. Yeah, exactly. I think what said is exactly what I was going to say in different words, right? The way to look at this today is every
Sorry,
single
Lux, if you could just go to the next slide. Yeah.
I could just share my thoughts on this bit. Is I just expand on what said. I think this is exactly how you need to be thinking about a monetization layer. If you already have an audience, you've been adding value to a lot of people. I think at that point of time, you've built enough trust for people to come pay you $1. Like you figure out what is the right amount for your geography, your members. The power of curation, I think the power of a community lies in curation, right? For us, we've had a much larger community. For us, think of Product Folks as a launchpad, right? We didn't have an audience to begin with, right? So I think on day one, even if we tried building a member only paid community, it wouldn't have worked, right? Today we do have vertical communities that are paid, right? But the larger community is always going to be free just because of the ethos with which we started, right? So I'd say, just expanding again on what I said, is if you already have an audience that trusts you, you can definitely figure out a way to create a curation, figure out the right sweet spot on monetizing, or what is that, maybe it could be a cup of coffee, right? $10 a month is something a lot of people would be comfortable paying as long as you've added enough value in the past. The reason that's important is once you start curating, you'll find that the quality of your community goes up. Second, we discussed engagement earlier, right? The challenge of engagement slightly becomes easier, right? Because now people are incentivized to come back to your community. Like I shared earlier, there are tons of free communities out there. People will come and experiment, but the easier you make it for them to join your community, it's only going to get easier for them to hop off, right? In an online only world. So I think figure out a way if you can build an audience, deliver value. Paid communities are definitely something that will come to you down the line. In our case, we started with the free community, which was an alternative for us to building out trust among our members. I think in short is what said, show value first, then people will be happy to pay for it.
Okay, I guess if you look at sites like Twitch and YouTube, people are happy to pay the content creator to be part of that community. So whether it's like your $5 to subscribe to Twitch. So I guess, although in our poll, most people said probably not willing to pay for it to be part of the community, the numbers on Twitch and YouTube beg to differ. Like there are a lot of people, and even sites like Patreon. Yeah, maybe if it's people are willing to pay a person rather than a faceless entity.
Yes, absolutely. I think in most communities also they start with, end of the day, it is the trust that comes through, right? Whether that comes even within a community, I think people trust some of the initial members, post which they trust the brand, which eventually makes them pay for a community, right? So the way to look at this is, and like you mentioned, like lots of people today might not be comfortable paying for communities, which is completely okay, right? If you see, even the largest companies today are ad-driven businesses and not subscription businesses, right? Even though Meta or Facebook has some of the largest communities today, the reason not like most of them are free communities, right? Reddit, if you see, most of them are free communities. So I think I don't disagree with the numbers that came through. But if you really want to find the power of a community, I think some of these paid communities are really, really useful. In a sense, you're incentivizing someone else to curate some learnings for you. You're incentivizing, and I'll give you a great example of people in the product space who've created, like in the space that we've been building community. There's one by Lenny Rachitsky, right? So he charges $20 a month for his newsletter. That creates enough of a gated mechanism for people to come join the Slack. So if you buy $20, if you pay $20 to join his newsletter, which is a content business, you also get access to other members, like via Slack channel, to other members who pay $20 for his newsletter, right? This is a content game which has been converted into a community. And then every month there are enough number of community meetups that happen with curated set of folks, right? So if you think of it, very similar to lots of initiatives we do. It's just that it's a content-led business which allowed him to do this full time.
Yeah.
And because of the power of curation, now there are more people coming back into the ecosystem, so quality goes up, right? So I think there is power in doing it in this format. Then again, like just every other software in the world, or just like everything else, there are enough good open source models. So I think the model that we follow is more of an open source model. And great open source software for all software folks in the room. There are great paid software, but for every paid software there is also an amazing open source software. So it's more of a mindset that you are following through. In free communities, if you can find enough value, right? If you can find enough value, nothing like it. But yeah, the challenge is like many communities aren't able to thrive long enough, because it takes lots of time, effort, and money to run communities. So if there is any way and I think lack of monetization is probably the reason lots of communities die out as well.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I imagine it's exhausting creating content, which is my next question there, which is what is the kind of content that you've found brings people coming back?
So to be very honest with you, I think the reason we transitioned very quickly into a community and not a content play or not an audience play is I think the core team that came together initially realized how hard it is to continuously churn out. Maybe we were an events only community initially, right? So just to do it alone was almost impossible. I think if any of us were doing it alone, the community would have probably fizzled out in a year tops, right? But it takes a lot of effort. So I think that is probably the reason. Just that I think some of us realized that early on, well, okay, hey, we can't do it alone. But if there are some other people who would be able to help us out, then maybe we'd go the distance, right? So I think that really helped. Maybe that mindset really helped us. So that is one advantage. And I think lots of creators today also, I think, get initial traction on Instagram, on YouTube, but the burnout is real, right? So you
Yeah.
see them post you're giving up. There are numbers for this as well, right? For every podcast that starts, if you're able to do more than 22 episodes, you're already automatically in the top 3% creators. So that's the
Gosh.
mark for you. If you're able to do more than 22 episodes, you're directly in the top 3%, right? So I think whether you're building an audience, whether you're building a community, the challenge is real. Even within communities, I think the general statistics is there are 90% people who are lurking, which is essentially
Yeah.
just consuming your content. The 9% who come back and contribute in terms of engaging, replying, and only 1% who create. Right. So I think that's the general statistics. If you can even move the percentage points by 10 bips, right? I think you'd probably have a very interesting community going your way.
Okay. We're running out of time quickly. I've got two big questions, and then maybe hopefully some time for some more audience questions. How do you know when you've hit that critical mass of like, now I can take a little bit of a step back and not have to create so much content because I wake up in the morning and I know that my community members have done their thing? Like, is there a point where you can hit that critical mass, do you think?
To be very honest with you, I think you'll always have phases. There would be never a time where you can be completely hands off. There will be a phase where you can take a break because once you've hit a certain set of engaged users, I think there'll be enough of UGC getting generated within your community. But if you take a step back from content creation, the challenge becomes is how do you get people to discover your community, right? You're then relying only on word of mouth, nothing else, right? I think the idea is to take a step back to think that, okay, hey, if you think of this as a loop, content creation and community building go hand in hand. If you can figure out a way to get more people to contribute to content, which will allow more people to come into the community, I think this loop is something everyone thrives for. There isn't a certain number, right? I could not tell you, okay, get 1,000 people into your community and you hit community market fit, right? There isn't a particular number. Just like product market fit, I feel like this is something that you'll start feeling. It is more of a pull from the community that you start getting. Initially, you'll be churning out more content. Initially, you'll be doing a lot more things. Eventually, you'll figure out, okay, hey, there are enough number of interactions coming in from the community. But I think it takes a good, in my opinion, I think it takes a good 6 to 12 months. Because you'll go through the entire phase where lots of people discover your community initially. They come into your community. Post over time, the engagement dies. Then you figure out ways to activate some of those core members. You churn out some of the inactive members. Then you start figuring out what is it that the community wants today. You build a ritual around it. So the entire process that you go through takes a good 6-12 months. And for folks who are able to do it post 6 to 12 months without seeing too many results, I think those are the ones that really build thriving communities later.
Yeah. Okay. Last question, I promise, from me. Lux, if you just go forward a couple of slides, it's all about metrics. I think someone touched upon it. Like, what metrics should we be using? What do you measure?
I think I have a slide on this. Let me quickly share what I measure.
Oh, yeah.
I think this might be helpful for folks. Is this visible?
Yes.
So these are a bunch of metrics, of course, on day one. Yeah, you don't have to start with this on day one, but just think of these as buckets, right? And if I were to remove all the jargon, I think these are 5 buckets. You need to figure out, how many new members are coming to your community, how many of them are active, and churn rate is essentially just figuring out how many of them aren't coming back to your community on a month-to-month basis, right? As simple as that. How many of them have stopped coming back, right? In the engagement, I think the ones that we only two metrics that we measure. Of course, there are a lot more. One is how many of these are converting to contributors. I shared with you the 99:1 ratio. If you can just increase that by 10 bips every single time, I think that's useful. For most communities, I think UGC allows more people to discover. So I think that is one thing that we try to measure so that if there is more UGC coming through, that means people are sharing it actively with their social circles, right? So that is one thing that we like to measure. Growth, contribution, and retention. In this, one of the interesting one that we've tried to do on a Slack is the helpfulness votes, right? There is a bot called it's called Samosa bot, which is essentially karma points. If someone's helped you within our Slack community, you just gift them a samosa. It's just an emoji, nothing else.
Yeah.
But then internally you get to track it within the dashboard that hey, there is this person who has been helping others and they've got X number of samosas in a month. And once every month, we gift them an Amazon voucher for being the most helpful person in our community, right? And that is an interesting
That's
one
really
of
nice.
everything else that we do. So I think that really tells you who are the power users in your community. And it's not much like it's not much of a reward to them, but it's just one way of saying thanks from the rest of the community. And retention is something that's very important. I think we spend a lot of time on figuring out, okay, how many people are coming to the community, but retention allows you to understand what didn't go right. So if there are people who aren't contributing, maybe at the end of the month, as you get the list, right, today there are enough number of community intelligence tools, but try reaching out to them to understand what didn't work out, right? Some of them might reply back to you. That will at least allow you to understand what is the expectation with which people are coming to your community, based on what you have on your landing page, based on what you have during your onboarding process. And if they do not continue to come back to your community, you can understand what you're missing, right? So I think the most useful part that most people don't do has been about figuring out retention and talking to people who've churned out. So I think, yeah, happy. Y'all can take a screenshot of this if it helps. And if some of y'all want to set it up as well, y'all can check out. There are lots of tools today in the market to do this. Or if y'all need any help to jam around, the communities you are building, happy to sit down. I know lots of this is contextual, right? So happy to share my journey, but also sit down with you to understand, the way you're building it and jam with you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much, Suhas. That's all my questions. Lux, I just wonder if we could do a quick ad hoc talking tiles just to see and get people's feedback and thoughts on what they've learned or what takeaways they got from this session.
Sure thing. So you wanted to add up talking
Yeah.
tiles on takeaways
Yes, please.
and
Just. I mean, there's a lot of information that's been bombarded. There's a lot of I'm going to have to go back through this recording myself to have a look. But
Yeah, I think there are
I
lots
mean,
of
my big
questions.
thing was like, oh crap, we can actually do offline stuff. That might be a better way of seeding and getting those evangelists.
I think I completely agree with Mark. I think
Just a side thing.
offline is so 2021. I think that you'll be surprised. I think especially post pandemic, lots of folks today are craving for that offline connection back, right? So I think this is visible from the decline of online platforms like Hopin. You would have seen, astronomical valuations they raised that during the pandemic, which was the case for sure. But I think people are craving. I'm not saying online is over. Online is definitely a great way for you to build discovery. And hence I over-index on the fact that something that we didn't do, right? We didn't create as much content in our early days. But if you were to ask me today, I think we definitely have come a long way. If you see the content that we posted back in 2020 versus the content that's going out on our LinkedIn today, these are, some amazing sketch notes, some amazing deep dives that we post for free online, right? It takes a lot of time and effort to do this, but we never indexed on it back in the day. So I'd say the mix between online and offline is super important. If offline is too operations heavy for you, feel free to start with an online only community, but then try to build a one-to-one relationship between your community members. I feel in most online communities, it becomes very, very difficult to get to know who's the other person. So like, I'll give you an example from today's session, right? Many sessions that you would have seen, many online sessions that you see across the globe today, is two people talking to a lot of people where the videos are all switched off, right? So it becomes so difficult to even build a relation. So I like, at least in this case, there are lots of y'all, at least over time, who've come, switched on your videos. And I feel this part of it, if you can scale online, nothing like it, right? Today, I know I will go back remembering a bunch of y'all from this session, but if there is no face at the other end, it becomes very difficult to, remember who that other person is. So that is just my contention with building online only communities.
Yeah.
That grow really, really fast. If there are active ways where members can interact with each other, nothing like it.
Yeah. Suhas, I think we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to end it here. Very quickly, when are you bringing out your book on how to build a community? I feel like there should be a book in the works.
To be honest, if you'd asked me this way back in 2019, I felt the need for books or a community management playbook would have been super useful. In today's day and age, there are very, very good material. In fact, I'll share a couple of names with you in the chat section if any of you all are interested. There's The Art of Community. If you are very new to community management, do check that one out. If you've been building communities for a while, and if you already have a thriving community, check out Happy City. I feel it covers the structure of how do you build a belonging within a community. And another one is the Indispensable Community Building Playbook. These are two books. If you've already been building communities, there are lots of tactical stuff, and I'm happy to share. I have a copy, an online copy. So if any of you all are interested, happy to share that. I think it's a Kindle version, so I'm happy to mail it to one of you.
Happy City Transforming. I'm not sure if that's the right book.
That's one. Transforming
Lives Through Urban Design.
No, not that one.
I was going to say that didn't seem right.
Just a second.
Okay.
I'll try finding an Amazon link to that, and I'll share it here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably share it post this session.
Is it on Amazon?
Peter, while Suhas is doing that, if you want, we can pick one person who's participated to give a copy of that book if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can do that. So everybody who's participated will just enter you into a Wheel of Fortune, and
so do you want everyone who's participated so far, or?
yeah.
All right, we may not have all of them in the room. I'm going to go with everyone has put at least 2 comments. Let's have some fun over here. What happens if we put 3, 15? 2 comments, Peter?
2 comments. Yep. Let's have a look.
All right.
And
All the best. This is probably, the wheel. This is one of the features we use in our teardowns. There used to be online tools for this, but I think these are the engagement activities for which we use Streamlive. Swapna, congrats, Swapna.
oh, yeah. Well done.
Fun fact, Swapna was also one of our earliest backers. She did share in the chat section. So I'm
Yes.
probably meeting her after a very long time, but good to see you here.
Awesome. Suhas,
Fantastic.
thank you
Yes.
so much as always. Peter,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everyone so much for joining. We do these kind of events every couple of weeks. We've got one coming up with a person called John Chen. He is an absolute wizard when it comes to running virtual events. You should see his home setup. He's got like 14 different screens. He's got stream decks everywhere. He's got all kinds of crazy things going on. There's a lot to learn from him just there. So if you're able to make it on the 13th of March, we'd love to have you join us for that as well. And go to the Luma page. We have Mr. Syed coming up as well later on, I think on 22nd of May. We're really looking forward to having him join us for that event as well.
Yep. And again,
Thanks so much
to
for hosting
access
this
this, to go to streamalive.com and click on the events on top, the showcase events.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, I was just saying thanks so much everyone for joining in, and thanks so much for hosting this entire Stream Live team. Lots of interesting sessions on there. On YouTube as well, right? I think the past sessions that are there, I've attended a couple of them, so you all should check it out. And if anyone, I know there were tons of other questions that we couldn't cover, but if anyone's interested in jamming on some of the communities you are building, or if you weren't able to cover some of these today, please feel free to reach out. Happy to jam on some of these ideas.
Awesome.
Thank you. I
Thank
think
you,
60 minutes is not enough, but Suhas, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.